It all began with a gnome. A single, hand-painted garden gnome I bought from a local fair because it looked like my late grandpa. Round belly, mischievous grin, pipe in hand. I placed it beside my porch roses and forgot about it. A week later, I got a letter taped to my door in all caps. Violation notice. Unauthorized decorative object in front yard. Remove immediately or face fine. Signed Karen, HOA president, self-declared keeper of neighborhood standards. I laughed thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. 2 days later, I received another letter, this time with a printed picture of the gnome circled in red like it was a murder suspect. A $500 fine. For aesthetic disruption. I called the HOA office. Karen answered. "Mr. Hayes, rules are rules," she said smugly. "We can't have clutter devaluing property values." Clutter? I asked. "It's 6 inches tall." "Well," she said, "it's about the principle." The principle apparently was extortion. That's when I started keeping a folder, every letter, email, call log. If this HOA was going to play games, I'd play chess. Little did I know that tiny gnome would trigger a $5 million fine, a public meltdown, and one of the pettiest victories in HOA history. Multiply like rabbits. A week after I ignored the gnome notice, the HOA doubled the fine, $1,000. Then they fined me again for failure to mow. My lawn was perfectly trimmed. Another for improper mailbox color. It was literally beige, like everyone else's. They were escalating and fast. I started noticing neighbors avoiding eye contact. Turns out Karen had been sending out community newsletters with thinly veiled digs at me. Certain homeowners are failing to maintain aesthetic standards, she wrote, and may be subject to significant penalties. I kept my cool. I documented everything. I even installed a small camera facing the street just in case. Then one morning I came outside to find a bright orange paper stapled to my mailbox. Notice of accumulated fines. $37,500 due immediately. $37,000. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. I emailed Karen. "Hey Karen, I think your calculator's having a stroke." She replied. Per Section 9.2b of HOA guidelines, fines may compound daily. Compliance avoids penalties. I looked up that section. It didn't exist. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just power tripping. This was fraud or something close. I decided to dig. I wanted to know exactly who gave Karen the power to invent fake laws and drain my wallet. Queen in her court. The HOA meetings were held every second Thursday in the community clubhouse. A pompous name for a glorified shed with a coffee machine and folding chairs. I walked in late on purpose. Karen sat at the head table, pearls gleaming, flanked by her board. A retired dentist, a guy who mowed lawns part-time, and a woman who looked like she'd report a squirrel for loitering. As soon as I sat down, Karen cleared her throat. "Mr. Hayes," she began, "your violations are accumulating at a concerning rate." "I noticed," I said. "Curious though, who approved these fines?" She smiled. "The board." I glanced around. None of them could meet my eyes. "Interesting," I said. "Because Section 4 of the HOA Charter says the board can't impose financial penalties without a full member vote." Karen froze. The room went quiet. "Perhaps," she stammered, "you're misinterpreting the bylaws. I downloaded them from your website this morning," I said, holding up my phone, "and screenshot them, in case you try editing later." That earned a few snickers from the back row. Karen glared like I'd kicked her poodle. "We'll revisit this next month," she hissed. That's when I knew. I wasn't fighting the HOA. I was fighting Karen Incorporated. And she wasn't ready for what came next. A few days later, I came home to find a new notice. Final penalty, $5 million. Failure to pay will result in property lien and foreclosure action. I actually laughed out loud. $5 million. For a gnome. I walked straight to the HOA office. Karen was there, sipping an iced latte behind her president plaque. $5 million, huh? I said, dropping the notice on her desk. She didn't flinch. "Rules are rules, Mr. Hayes." "Show me," I said. "Show me where in the bylaws it says you can fine someone the GDP of a small country for garden decor." She smiled that condescending Karen smile. "Our board agreed on the amount unanimously." "Ah," I said. So the same board that doesn't have legal quorum because you never filed your renewal papers with the state? Her face went pale. I'd found it in a public record search that morning. Their HOA registration had expired 2 years ago. Technically, they weren't even a legal HOA anymore. You can't just, she started. I can, I interrupted. And tomorrow I will. That's when she realized. The quiet guy with the gnome had done his homework. The war had officially begun. The next weekend, I treated myself like a detective on a caffeine bender. Coffee in one hand, county records in the other. I went down a rabbit hole: land plats, zoning maps, property deeds. I wanted to know everything about this neighborhood. And that's when I found it. The HOA's community clubhouse. The pride of the neighborhood, the building Karen loved to show off, wasn't on HOA-owned land. It was on Lot 77. My lot. I thought it was a typo. I pulled the deed again. Nope. Clear as day, Lot 77, Parcel 3B. Registered to Ethan Hayes. That was me. They'd built the entire clubhouse, coffee bar, meeting hall, storage shed, everything, on my property line. They weren't just violating HOA rules. They were trespassing. I grinned like a maniac. I printed the documents, highlighted everything, and stuck them in a folder labeled Checkmate. That night I slept like a baby. The next HOA meeting was going to be legendary. Karen must have sensed something was coming because the next HOA newsletter practically foamed at the mouth. Certain residents have shown disrespect toward community leadership, she wrote. Legal action is being considered. I almost framed it. I didn't respond. I wanted her to feel comfortable, overconfident. Meanwhile, I hired a property surveyor, just to double confirm. The poor guy nearly dropped his clipboard when he realized the clubhouse sat 15 feet into my parcel. Technically, he said, they owe you back rent for the entire structure. I smiled. Oh, I'm counting on it. He handed me an official survey report, stamped and sealed. Now I had everything: evidence, witnesses, and legal grounds. The next meeting I brought donuts. I wanted everyone relaxed. Karen saw me walk in and smirked. Mr. Hayes, I hope you're here to pay your fines. Oh, I said. I'm definitely here to settle something. She didn't know it yet, but that meeting would end her presidency, and maybe the HOA itself. The community hall was full, every folding chair taken, people standing along the walls. Karen sat front and center, her president badge shining like a sheriff's star. She opened the meeting with her usual speech about maintaining standards. Then she turned to me. Mr. Hayes, your outstanding fines total $5 million. Do you have payment arrangements? I stood. Actually, I have a presentation. I walked up with my folder, clicked a slide on the projector, and the first image popped up, a satellite map of the neighborhood. This, I said, is the community clubhouse. And this, I highlighted the outline, is my property. Murmurs filled the room. Karen frowned. That's ridiculous. Our clubhouse is HOA-owned. I clicked to the next slide, the deed. My name, my parcel number, county seal. According to county records, I said, you've built your clubhouse 15 feet onto my land, which means you've been trespassing for 3 years. Silence. Then a gasp from the crowd. Karen stammered. That's impossible. Oh, it's possible, I said, holding up the stamped survey. And unless you want to settle, I'll start charging rent at commercial rates. That was the night the HOA crown began to crack. Karen went red, then purple. You think you can threaten this board? She screamed. We own that land. Then show your deed, I said calmly. She shuffled her papers. Nothing. The audience started whispering. One neighbor muttered, wait, if he owns that, are our dues even legal? I could practically see the panic ripple through her court. Karen slammed her gavel. This meeting is adjourned. Actually, I said, it's not. Section 3.7 states members can overrule the chair with a 2/3 vote. All in favor. Hands shot up everywhere. Karen froze, jaw hanging open. Someone in the back yelled, let him finish. I smiled. Thank you. Now, as of this moment, the HOA owes me 3 years of property use, roughly $120,000 in fair rent. Plus, any fines against me are null and void. Karen shrieked. This is absurd. It's documented, I said, and recorded. Oh, and your expired registration? The county clerk will love to see that. The room erupted. People started clapping. That was the last time Karen ever called a meeting without shaking. Karen wasn't done. 2 days later, a tow truck showed up trying to remove my perfectly parked car for unauthorized parking. I showed the driver my property deed. He left laughing. Then came letters claiming my house violated paint color guidelines. I'd painted it 8 years ago, under her own approval. It was petty warfare now, Karen's specialty. So I went legal. I filed a formal cease and desist for harassment and trespass, attaching the survey and deed. My lawyer also sent a notice demanding compensation for 3 years of unauthorized use of my land. Karen's board tried to bluff. "We'll see you in court," they said. "Perfect," my lawyer replied. "Discovery will be fun." Within a week, half the board resigned. Turns out they had no idea the clubhouse wasn't theirs, and didn't want to be dragged into a lawsuit. The community started whispering not about me but about her. The once feared HOA queen was officially losing her throne. The county inspector showed up a week later. Clipboard, camera badge, the whole deal. He asked a few polite questions, then walked the property line with his measuring tape. "Yeah," he said finally. "They built that building right on your lot. That's a problem." He snapped photos, took notes, and told me the county would be reviewing potential code violations. That's when I found out something even juicier. The clubhouse didn't have updated safety permits. Karen had forgotten to renew them. Within days, the county shut down the entire clubhouse pending investigation. Karen lost it. She sent an all-caps email to everyone. "Do not believe the lies being spread. The HOA remains in control." Nobody bought it. The residents had started reading the bylaws themselves and realized half her rules didn't exist. By the end of the month, Karen had gone from queen bee to local meme. Someone even photoshopped her face onto a Monopoly card that said, "Go directly to jail." I printed it and kept it in my folder. For morale. The next meeting wasn't called by Karen. It was called by us, the homeowners. Over 40 people showed up, fed up with years of nonsense. Someone brought cookies. Someone else brought copies of the bylaws. Karen tried to stop it, yelling about procedure. Procedure. I said, "You don't even have legal standing as an HOA right now." Cheers erupted. We voted right there, by a landslide, to dissolve the old board and form a new one. Karen's name wasn't even nominated. When it was official, she stormed out, muttering about ungrateful residents. I stood up and said, "All previous fines null and void. Any remaining funds will go toward repainting the playground, and maybe a gnome garden." People laughed, clapped, hugged. For the first time, the neighborhood actually felt like a community. A month later, the HOA, under new management, reached a settlement with me. They agreed to pay me $95,000 in back property use and legal fees. In return, I allowed them continued access to the clubhouse, under a proper lease. Karen. She was barred from holding any leadership role in the neighborhood ever again. I got a formal apology letter signed by every board member except her. I framed it next to my gnome. The funniest part? My mailbox, lawn, and unauthorized decor were now considered heritage features, protected under the new bylaws. The irony was delicious. Sometimes I'd see Karen drive by, glaring from her car, pretending not to see me wave. Justice, it turns out, looks great next to roses. The story spread fast. A neighbor posted the meeting video online, and within a week it hit 1 million views. Titles like "HOA gets owned by homeowner with receipts" started popping up. I started getting mail. Not fines but thank you cards from strangers who'd fought their own Karens. Local news even did a small segment about the man who legally evicted his HOA. It was surreal. I wasn't a hero. I was just a guy tired of nonsense. The new board started doing actual good. Community picnics, fair fees, transparent budgets. No drama, no dictators. And me? I just wanted peace. But every time I passed that clubhouse, knowing it legally sat on my land, I smiled a little wider. It was the sweetest kind of victory, lawful, satisfying, and a little bit petty. Months later, Karen tried one last move. She filed a complaint claiming I'd stolen HOA property. The county clerk dismissed it within a day. The clubhouse lease proved otherwise. Then she tried a smear campaign on Facebook, calling me a danger to community order. I replied with a single post, A photo of my gnome holding a property owner sign. The comments destroyed her. Give it up, Karen. Just move. You got owned by a lawn ornament. She deleted her account a week later. Rumor has it, she tried joining another HOA in the next town. They rejected her after a background check. Sometimes justice doesn't need handcuffs, just exposure. The neighborhood has been calm ever since. Kids play on the street again. No more creepy inspection walks. We even hosted a Gnome Day festival. Everyone brought one for their yard. I gave a short speech. May our lawns be free, our mailboxes colorful, and our bylaws readable. People laughed and cheered. It's funny. I didn't start this war to win. I started it to end it. But standing there with the whole community smiling, I realized something. Sometimes one stubborn person is all it takes to stop a bully. Even if that bully wears pearls and quotes fake bylaws. A year later, I renewed my property survey out of habit. The deed still listed me as owner of the Clubhouse parcel. The lease still stood. And my gnome? Still there untouched. Every time I walk past the building, I imagine Karen's face when I revealed the map. It never fails to make me grin. The HOA tried to fine me $5 million. Instead, they ended up paying me. Now, when people ask how I did it, I just shrug and say, always read your deed. Always keep your receipts. And never, ever underestimate a man with a gnome.